Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Night's Cast, the official podcast of WatchersOnTheWall.com, a Game of Thrones community for breaking news, casting, and commentary. But as you may have noticed, like last week, we are not on podcasting. We are live today. So we are going to recap episode 1, last week's premiere episode. We're going to talk episode 2, questions, comments from listeners and viewers out there. Also kind of make some of our own predictions for what we think might happen in tonight's episode. And we're just going to have some fun with it. So that said, I'm Samantha, contributing writer to WatchersOnTheWall.com and one of your co-hosts for the Night's Cast. You can find me on Twitter at the Sansa Snark, if you are so inclined. And joining me today, we have two very lovely contributors joining. First of all, we have Lady Jeffrey. Hello, my dear. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Oh, God. Hey, everyone. I'm Lady Jeffrey, and apparently I don't know how to use the unmute button on Google Hangouts. That's a learning curve for everyone. If you would like to find me on Twitter, where I do know how to tweet because I don't have to press any buttons, I'm at Lady_Jeffrey. You'll see pictures of everything, including my beautiful rats, and all my weird thoughts about Game of Thrones.
Fantastic. And thank you for making time for us today. And let's see, we also have Petra. Hi, Petra.
Hi, I'm Petra. Really happy to be doing my first live stream right now. You can follow me on Twitter at PLHalber if you are so inclined.
Yeah, I think, are you guys both new to live streaming? I forget. Petra, I know you said that you are. Lady G, have you done this before?
I did it once. But yeah, not for a really long time, and I'm excited to be here.
Oh, cool. We've got a bunch of noobs, but that's okay. I'm still new to this relatively myself, so we're all going to help each other through this. So what we're going to do today, like I said, first of all, we're going to start by kind of giving our thoughts and impressions on last week's premiere episode, Winterfell, episode 1. We have a couple of questions that have been submitted by audience members. We're going to be combing through the live chat. So if you have any questions, thoughts, any tinfoily type theories, I mean, nothing is too crazy for us to explore. So we're going to go through that. And then we're going to, like I said, make some predictions for what we think might happen tonight. There's some potentially really interesting stuff that's going down in episode 2 tonight. But let's get started first with talking about last week's episode. If you listen to it, last week, Vanessa, who is another one of our contributors, not able to join us today, but Vanessa and I did a very quick kind of skim to the surface recap of episode 1. So I've already kind of put my thoughts out into the ether there about episode 1. But ladies, let's start with Petra. Let's start with you. So if you don't mind, give us your impressions on episode 1, maybe one thing that you really liked, one thing that you really didn't, but just kind of what the episode did for you and how it worked as a season premiere.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it did a really good job at giving us what we wanted. We've wanted to see so many of those reunions, and right out of the gate, we got Arya and Jon, Arya and Gendry, Sansa and Tyrion, and I thought that it was well paced in that respect and well balanced. I am not sure how I feel about Samwell reacting to Daenerys the way he did. I'm still trying to form my own opinion on that, but I can't say I'm happy with where I think that that's going to go.
Yeah, that's something. Well, we can get into that a little bit, because I know that that's something that I was putting my thoughts out in on Twitter on that particular thing. Not only Sam's reaction to Dany, but then his how the reveal went with Jon. So yeah, I think we can touch on that a little bit more if you guys don't mind. But Lady Jeffrey, how about you? What were your thoughts on episode 1?
Yeah, I thought it was such a strong opening episode. I thought it was really well paced. There was like a really nice mix of kind of like the talking and the action. I mean, all of the reunions were just, glorious. I have so much time for Bran just sitting around and waiting for people. And I really loved the Samwell Daenerys scene. I thought John Bradley was just like, his acting in that scene was really superb, and I thought it was an interesting route for them to go down, given that they could have easily gone, hey, you know, his dad was abusive, so he's probably glad that he's dead, and doing something slightly different with it, which I really liked. Yeah, I just thought overall it was really great. And I think it may be the first episode in a really long time where I actively made a really loud noise when they did the reveal of poor little Lord Umber coming back to life. And apologies, because I'm in the UK, so I am watching it at close to 3 a.m. and I did scream quite loudly. So I feel like any episode that makes me do that is, do you know what I mean? It's definitely doing something right. So
yeah. And you were not the only one who made a very loud noise. I like grabbed my husband and was like shaking him, and I was like, oh my God, his eyes just opened, his eyes just opened. Yeah, so you were definitely not alone there. But yeah, real quick before we get into any of the other, questions or anything that we have submitted. So let's talk about not only the reveal, but also Sam's reaction to what Dany told him about how she executed his father and his brother. I have to say that I was not a big fan of it, and I want to kind of put a precursor there that like when I posted about this on Twitter last week, I was getting a lot of people who were like, abusive relationships like that, like the extent to which it was with Samuel's father, are very, very difficult. And even if it is so abusive, like once you lose that person without kind of getting to resolve any of the issues, it can be a really, really difficult thing. And it can leave you feeling very, very upset. And because that chance for reconciliation, or that chance for you even just telling them what you think of them is kind of taken away from you. And I get that 100%. And the more that I think about it, I think that's probably what the writers were trying to go for there. It's still, I don't love though that is the way they chose to take it, because to me, his character growth has been one of my favorites to watch, because it's been so spectacular. Looking at how he started and where he is now, he's experienced such growth as a person, but also just as a man, and I was really hoping that what they would show us, and it's not surprising that they did show us that Sam was so upset about a man who was so shitty to him and a brother who was meh. I'm not surprised at all that what they showed us was a lot of empathy and compassion from Sam, because that's the type of person that he is. But I do wish that they also could have shown us that there is the other possibility there, which is just because it is family, you don't have to forgive them for what they've done to you. You don't have to feel so terribly because of that they're now taken away from you, kind of no matter what the circumstances are. So yeah, I kind of can see both sides of the argument there. Personally speaking, it's still, to me, I didn't like the fact that they made Sam so upset about losing his father and his brother. But again, personal opinion only. So, but Petra, I think you said, that you weren't a fan of that really either. So can you kind of expound on that a little bit more?
I wasn't terribly fond of it for a couple of reasons. I think Sam's reaction to the news of his family's death was realistic. I personally really don't like the fact that people grieve for abusive parents, but that's something that I don't like in real life. And so I'm not going to hold it against Game of Thrones that they represented an aspect of human nature that I have issues with. I do like the fact that Yara has completely forgotten that she said she was going to avenge her father, that has been dropped. I really appreciate that. They're not doing that with Sam, and that's okay. I take more issue, however, with the fact that this seems to be getting conflated with Daenerys being power hungry. I understand Sam not being happy with Daenerys, and I do like how unexpected it was that it's on like the wings of that anger that R+L=J is revealed. It's not like he holds Jon's hand and he's like, all right, Jon, I need you to prepare yourself. I need you to be brave. You're actually Aegon. It's in a much more the motivation behind Sam telling him that is very different from what I expected. And I always appreciate being surprised. However, the fact that we go from you're actually the rightful king of Westeros to Daenerys, when Sam says, so sorry. See, this is why I missed the podcast, because this could have been fixed up. But alas, here we are. When Jon says, I gave up my crown to save my people, and Sam says, would she do the same? That has nothing at all to do with what happened to the Tarleys. And so we're backtracking. We're going back into this Daenerys' power hungry mentality, which, if you're going to play that card, build up to it, it was not built up to. So where they are going with this, what exactly it was supposed to tell us about Daenerys that she executed the Tarleys, is not being followed through upon.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And like you said, kind of the lack of them kind of following up to that. And then, and again, another thing that I didn't really like about it is that now they're using, and this is kind of what you were just saying, Petra, but now they're using, Jon is using the reveal of the parentage as a very personal, very emotional, almost, it struck me as very selfish, because he's, very upset about this. What Dany has done. So he's like, oh, by the way, you're an actual Targaryen. You're the heir to the throne. And, oh, would she give up her crown? And, and Jon said a few times, like, no, she's the rightful heir. And Sam was kind of like egging him on a bit, saying like, oh, well, it doesn't have to be that way, or something to that effect. So it just ends up being, I mean, we knew that this was going to be a wedge between the two of them to some extent. We knew it was going to cause drama, but the fact that it's being used like such a personal driver by Sam just really seemed out of character to me. But I mean, Lady G, what do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
I just thought it was an interesting route for them to go down. I mean, I don't disagree with some of the stuff you're saying. I completely agree about how horrible it is when you have people grieving for abusive family members, and I agree that it is a kind of weird angle if you like to take this kind of like, is Daenerys doing stuff because she's power hungry, which is kind of dumb, and I think kind of fuels that kind of bizarre Daenerys hatred that you see a lot online, where you're like, oh, she's just burning people for the sake of it. Look, she's made Sam unhappy. Who would make Sam unhappy? Bad Dany. But I just thought it was a good kind of, it was an interesting way for them to lead into like him telling Jon, rather than it being just like, oh, by the way, Jon, I've learned something from your weirdo brother out there. Turns out you're related to Dany. Bye. And just kind of scuttling off. That it has then got this kind of personal angle. I mean, I would really hate it if Jon was like, well, I can't be with you, Daenerys, not because we're related, but because you made my friend a bit unhappy, like that would.
By the way, your impressions are spot on. I just have to tell you, but go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. So, and the other thing that occurred to me as well, like days later when I was talking about this with some of my friends, and I was like, nobody wants to see Sam unhappy. Like everyone loves Sam, like, and then I was like, I hope his mum and sister are okay. And then I had this horrible vision of him, like right at the end, like everything's sorted, like, someone's on the throne, it's calm, like winter's come, it's not so bad, everyone's got coats, and he's like, right, back to Hornhill. And then he gets there and his mother and sister have like killed themselves in a fit of grief. And then I was like, why? I don't know why my brain went there, but then I was like, I'm terrified that this is going to happen.
I mean,
it can't happen.
Yeah, I certainly hope not, but it does, it does make you think that what is happening at Hornhill in the meantime, but that's, yeah, I mean, that's, we can speculate about Hornhill another day. Yeah, I think that it's the whole thing, the reveal and how it's been used has been divisive. Although I've seen a lot of support for it on Twitter and elsewhere, which is just goes to show you that, to each their own, I guess. But obviously going forward, it's going to have a pretty big impact on Jon. And I wonder too, I mean, I wonder, I want your guys' input on this as well, but do you think that it's going to end up not quite backfiring, but instead of us thinking like, oh, this is really going to affect John and Danny's relationship. And don't get me wrong, I think that it will. But I wonder, do you guys think that it might affect John and Sam's relationship as well? Because I think that that's a strong possibility. I think that John might actually not be super happy with Sam. But I don't, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think you're right. And I think maybe that's why they chose to go down this particular route, because there aren't a great deal of strong, platonic, kind of non-romantic, non-familial friendships in the show, I think. And Sam and John, as I said, it's quite a pure friendship. Like I don't think I've ever met a Game of Thrones fan who's gone like, oh, you know what I really hate? Sam and John, those guys, so I think there's a reason that they've gone, I think because it would. And I think the question, when Sam asked John, what would you give up and things like that, I think what kind of hold is their friendship going to have on John's, kind of rise to kinghood, if you will. So I think maybe that's why they kind of chose to go down it. And I'd really hate them to fall out. I'd really hate, not just for the sake of like, because it's a nice friendship, I would really hate for them to not be there for one another because Danny killed Sam's parents, because that's a terrible reason, because they were dicks at the end of the day.
Yeah. Petra, what are your thoughts?
I definitely see John as being torn between Daenerys and Sam, which I don't love the man must choose between friend or lover dynamic, but it's kind of the way it's been set up. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to resolve. However, I'm confident that Sam is going to write A Song of Ice and Fire at the end with John as the protagonist. So however things settle, I think Sam is going to end the series alive and with a high opinion of John.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, if it is any kind of rift, I don't know that it's going to be a permanent one, but I just think it will be interesting if it does end up being, I mean, like I said, not a big permanent kind of thing, but I feel like maybe if this is the way that they're going with Sam doing the reveal the way that he did, I think that maybe he thinks that John should be grateful to him for giving him this information. And I think that John absolutely will. But I think that it's going to actually cause a little bit more of an argument between John and Sam than I think Sam might be prepared for himself. So, but yeah, I don't know. Interesting. Let's actually look into the live chat real quick. We got a couple of comments here. So from Gian Grimaldi, he said, talking about Sam, he didn't like that his father died, but his brother hit him really hard. I do agree about that. That definitely, I think we're supposed to believe that Sam and Dickon had a better relationship, obviously, than Sam and his father have. But I'm still not entirely happy about the fact that I've seen a lot of Dickon revisionist history going on Twitter. And it kind of annoys me because like we clearly saw Dickon's interaction with Sam in season 6, and he was not great to him. He just, he scoffed at him not knowing about how long it takes for venison to cure. And then he, laughed at Sam over the White Walkers. And then he sat there silent when Randall, tore Sam a new one. But I digress. Let's see here. So also from the chat, Jamie One Hand, they keep saying you are the king, and that bothers me. That's not how it works. Heir or person with a good claim is a better way to put it. It goes back to the Varys quote in season 1 or 2, power resides where people believe it resides. So that's another interesting point as well, because Sam did say to John very clearly, you are the king, not you are the heir, or not you're the one, with a stronger claim. So yeah, I kind of wonder why they have Sam wording it so specifically that way. Maybe it's just to kind of, I don't know, drive the point home a little bit further, a little bit more firmly. I don't know. Guys, what do you think?
I'm a little confused about the confusion. Since he is, how is saying you are the king less preferable to you are the heir? Is it just the technical jargon, or is it actually?
I guess so, yeah. It just like maybe technically, but I mean, yeah, I guess that Sam could say, oh, you're the king, but I kind of agree with this person posting it in the chat, because I think a better way to come out right away would have been, Danny thinks that she's the one with the stronger claim, but actually it's you. Rather than saying, hey, John, you're the king. Like, that would scare the shit out of me if I didn't even know who I was, first of all. I'm finding that out and then finding out that I might, have a stronger claim. I mean, I kind of agree that the wording was so very specific as to be a little unusual.
I imagine they did it to have more oomph so that they can put that like Jawity score underneath, and that's going to have more of a kick than you have a superior claim to the throne than Daenerys does.
Mm-hmm.
You are the king. I really do not like that they're playing the divine right of kings card. I've honestly never been fond of the R plus L equals J twist for that very reason. I don't know how it's going to pan out, but a episode largely dedicated to people talking about who has the superior hereditary entitlement to the throne is not what I'm hoping we get this evening. Maybe I'll change my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, Lady G, Jamie One Hand wants to know what you're drinking.
Hi, Jamie One Hand. I am drinking. Am I allowed to advertise? I'm drinking
Sure.
Old Moot, pineapple and raspberry cider. And it is delicious.
There you go. They just got a plug courtesy of the Night's Cast. You're welcome, whatever brewery that is. So, all right. So let's look at a couple of the questions that we got, comments we got that were submitted ahead of time. So we got a couple of things from Thronecaster at Thronecaster. The first one that they say is, in terms of reunions, I wonder if we'll see Sansa and Varys have a conversation about Littlefinger. I'd imagine he'd be interested in hearing about the demise of his one-time adversary. I expect Dany to be positive about the Jon reveal. No more lonely Targaryens in the world. So, okay, so two things going on there. First, we have are Sansa and Varys going to have a conversation about Littlefinger, which I think would be super interesting. And then they also think that Dany is going to be positive about the Jon reveal. So let's look at the Sansa and Varys conversation first. I think that would be great. I think it would be really interesting to hear, but I think that's also one of those things that unless they're going to reveal us any new important information that's going to move the plot forward, I don't know that they'll throw that in at this point, only because I mean, I'll be honest in that I thought last week's episode felt rushed. I felt like they were packing a lot in, almost too much into one episode. And I just don't know that they're gonna try and throw in kind of something that seems a little not pointless, but well, okay, I don't know. Maybe it would be pointless. I don't know, guys. What do you think? What do you think about a possible Sansa Varys conversation about Littlefinger?
I would enjoy it for sure, but I'm with you. There are so many characters that I want to meet up and talk. Like the mathematical like combination of potential characters is very, very long. So yeah, I don't expect it. It would be cool, but I'm not gonna be holding my breath for that this episode.
Yeah, yeah, I'd have to agree. Lady G, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, the question says in terms of reunions, and I'm trying to think, have Sansa and Varys ever really? It's not two characters where I'm like, oh, they used to hang out together and it'd be really cool if they saw each other again. Like, I totally agree with Petra. Like, it would be an interesting thing to see and have them talk about. But I feel like in this stage of the game, unless it's going to be either for like a really nice callback to something else or something to move the plot forward, I can't. It's certainly not in the same sense as, say, Tyrion and Sansa, because that was obviously like a huge deal. So yeah, it would be nice, but I'm not holding my breath.
Maybe we'll like get it in passing or something, like it'll just be I don't know, kind of a simple throwaway comment about like Varys kind of like looking around like, oh, I don't see a certain someone here, and him and Sansa kind of look at each other like, like wink, wink. That was the scariest looking wink I think I've ever done in my life. Yeah, no, it would be cool, but I don't think that we're gonna get it necessarily. So, so as to Thronecaster's other comment, I expect Dany to be positive about the Jon reveal. No more lonely Targaryens in the world. I think that it's going to affect Dany less than it's going to affect Jon. And I think that's how I've kind of always felt about it. Petra, what are your thoughts on that? As to, do you think Dany's going to be positive about it?
Probably not, simply because that does muddy her claim to the throne. I don't think the aunt nephew thing is going to bother her as much. First of all, as fun as it would be to watch these characters freak out over this revealed incest, that's not really the most plot relevant. So it's more important that Daenerys, having spent her entire life talking about how she, or rather her older brother, and eventually she, is going to take the throne, suddenly finds out, oh, there's somebody else who has a greater claim than I do, and how that messes with her sense of entitlement to the throne. If there's a softer way to word that, I don't know what it is. I got to be honest, it's not my favorite conflict that I can imagine, but that's most certainly where the show has built up to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lady G, do you have thoughts on this as to whether or not Dany's going to be positive over the Jon reveal?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that she'll be positive in a kind of lonely Targaryen sense. But I kind of wonder if anything, it might prompt her to make the relationship stronger through marriage. Because frankly, as Petra was saying, I don't think the fact that they are technically related, is going to count for a big deal. I feel like if anything, she might go like, well, you know what? I'm a Targaryen who wants the throne. If I marry this Targaryen, then no one can say that they're, that's like narrowing it. There's two of us and I'm still in charge. So let's just, put a ring on it. Let's get it done.
Put a ring on it. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Because I think that to Dany, who knows her family's history with intermarriage between the family and such, I think it's going to matter less to her that they're related. And yeah, I tend to agree with you that I think that she is going to be like, hey, this is fabulous, like, we'll just marry each other and we can start like a new kind of dynasty, I guess. And Dany, she has spoken at length about how she wants to do things differently. So I don't know, we still don't know what that might look like, but I think that kind of a power sharing thing, once she finds out that there's another Targaryen, might be, I don't know if it'll affect her as much. I think, like I said, definitely not as much as it's going to affect Jon. But Jon is not only finding out that they're related, but that he is literally not who he thought he was his entire life. So it's definitely gonna be interesting. So all right, so let's see what else we've got here in the live chat. Raven R. Sapphire says, why is it not snowing anymore in King's Landing? That's an interesting question. Maybe it was just a cold spell. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. So let's see. Barbie Lopez in the live chat says, hopefully they get married and it will resolve everything, but don't think that will happen. I mean, yeah, the marriage thing, and it was Davos, I think, last week who brought up the idea of a match between the two of them before anybody even knows about Jon's parentage. So yeah, I mean, as long as, I think Jon is the one that's going to have to be convinced about it. I don't know that Dany is going to need as much convincing, but yeah, absolutely. I think it would solve a lot of problems. Let's see here. Else from the live chat. Jake Koo says, how long before we start to wonder if Dany is pregnant? This is interesting because this is something that they've heavily foreshadowed, and I think that they are going to give to us. But I hope that they don't rush the reveal of this like they felt they rushed the reveal of Jon's parentage, or at least I thought it felt rushed. So I hope they don't rush that. It is something that if it happens, it's going to be super, super important. So I can see it happening sooner rather than later, but like kind of only being hinted at first. And it might happen as early as tonight's episode. I kind of doubt it. but on the other hand, that would kind of be the best episode to plant that seed, pun intended, because we're not gonna have time for it in episode 3, which we know is going to be the big battle scene. So yeah, I don't know, Lady G, what do you think about whether or not, or how we might see a Dany pregnancy revealed?
I don't know. I mean, like, honestly, between the two, I'm kind of more intrigued by Cersei's pregnancy, because there's a lot of weirdness kind of going on. Is she pregnant? Is she not pregnant? Is she pregnant with Jaime's baby? And then she's going to try and pretend that it's Euron's baby. And yeah, it's a whole thing. But as far as like Daenerys being pregnant, I just see it as being a kind of weird stick in the works, because she's not married to Jon. So with that, I feel like, I mean, if she can't have a baby out of wedlock, I don't know. I mean, in terms of reveal, there's only like one way you can kind of reveal that someone's pregnant. That's, let's say throw the Westerosi equivalent of like a baby gender reveal party, like one dragon in blue and one dragon in pink, and then they both fly over. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's obviously something that they are leading up to. But I feel as well, there's been, for me, in the show, less kind of emphasis on this kind of idea of Dany being infertile kind of post Khal Drogo, and then leading up to this kind of place where she might be able to have a child again, and the prophecy and stuff, which they haven't done in the show as much. So I feel like either way any way that they're going to do it in the show is not, for me, going to have the same kind of impact as if they were doing it in the books.
Yeah, I have to agree that the whole thing is, I'll be honest, I don't like the idea of, first of all, if Jon and Dany are going to have a baby, I guess that's fine. I have to agree that I'm not as intrigued by that one as I am what's going on with Cersei's pregnancy, and we can talk about that one a little bit if we have time. But I don't. My fear is that if they make Dany carry Jon's baby, and my fear is that they would do something really terrible with her ending, is that she would die in childbirth or something, so then Jon has to rule, and that's what makes me nervous about a possible Jon and Dany baby. But yeah, I mean, they've so heavily foreshadowed the last couple of episodes of season 7. There's just so much talk about, I think Jorah says something to Jon about, leaving the world better for those who come after us, and keep Longclaw so that someday you can give it to your children, or something like that. It's just, it has been really heavily foreshadowed. But yeah, I think if it is gonna happen, they can't possibly just kind of give us the reveal and everything all at once. I think what would be better is if they would kind of introduce the idea of it and then build up to it a little bit more, so that maybe by the end of the season, that's what we're getting. But I just, yeah, it's a sticky situation for me, to be honest. So, all right, let's see here. So Thronecaster also had one more question, or one more question. And this is a very interesting one. I wonder if this is something that we'll see. He says, I also wonder if Bran will tell Jaime that he warged into Hodor and killed Locke, Amory Locke, back in I think that was season 4, if I'm remembering that correctly. The man who cut off Jaime's sword hand, Karma GOT style. That would be pretty interesting, I think, but I don't know. I think Jaime would be like, okay, thanks. I think Jaime has almost gotten to the point where he's maybe moved beyond that whole thing, because I think that losing his sword hand at the time was the worst thing that ever happened to him. But I think that it has become the best thing that's ever happened to him. But that might just be my opinion. What do you guys think?
I think the hyperspecificity of that mention it makes it unlikely. In the same sense that I would love a Sansa and Varys conversation, but I don't expect one. Kind of mentioning through dialogue all the tiny connections that have been made between characters throughout the show. And also, I think Bran is beyond caring about that. I'll be very interested to know if he has a more emotional reaction to Jaime than what I am anticipating. But for him to say, "Oh, by the way, I killed the guy who cut off your hand," that's a kind of pettiness that I don't think Bran has anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It definitely is, like you said, a little bit too specific. But again, I don't know that it couldn't come up in just kind of a throwaway sentence, like kind of like a Varys, says to Sansa, like, "Oh, I don't see a certain someone about," or, something like that. So yeah, I don't know. I think it is a tad too specific though. So
To be
sorry.
totally honest with you, when I saw the question, I was like, which one's Armory Lock? And then I was like, oh yeah, the guy that cut off Jamie's. And then I was like, if I'm thinking that, I feel like for the viewers, that's not going to be that much of a thing. I think, yeah, I agree that maybe something in like, because Bran's Bran, something kind of subtle in passing, but I don't, yeah, like the kind of pettiness, but also I just think like, not that viewers won't remember that obviously Jamie's missing a hand or that he had a hand cut off, but I think that kind of specificity, if that's even a word, of of Bran wagging, and I just think it will be a bit of a muddle for the viewer going like, did Bran also do that? Okay. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it is, like we've said, it's a little bit too specific. And yeah, it is. Bran isn't really, I mean, a lot of people are anticipating, the Bran Jamie conversation, which is going to be very interesting, but it's not. I mean, they've put so much emphasis on the fact that Bran isn't Bran anymore. Like he's not, he's not going to be. So he's almost not going to care that he's confronted by the man who pushed him out of a window, because he's kind of removed from all of that. Basically any human emotion. So, yeah.
I wonder if they're going to juxtapose Bran's reaction to Daenerys' reaction, because based on the preview, and I hope I'm wrong, but based on the preview, Daenerys is going to be very angry at Jaime because he killed her father, which I don't like on so many levels. And I wonder if they're going to kind of juxtapose, oh, see how angry and emotional you are, Daenerys? Well, look at Bran. He's not emotional. This is a reasonable comparison to make. I don't like thinking so little of the writers, but I can kind of feel possibly the kind of moving in that direction.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm interested when we get to, because I have a lot of thoughts on the whole, not just Jamie Bran interaction, but the Jamie Dany interaction. So that's going to be really interesting. But since we're still kind of talking about Bran and Jamie, we have another submitted couple of comments from Poxy. This is from, let's see here if I get this wrong. Jason, Poxy Jane Poor did nothing wrong, Wolcott at Woolly Dub let's see here. So this is kind of a longer thread, but I'll get through it as fast as I can. So after watching season 8, episode 1 again, it really stood out to me how Bran keeps saying he's not really Bran anymore. He doesn't care what Jaime did to Bran. The misdirect is that Bran will be the one to defend Jaime when everyone else wants him dead, because Bran knows Jaime's role with the Night King. When Jaime's standing before everyone and only Tyrion and Brienne are defending him, and it looks like that's it for Jaime, Bran will speak up about his Mad King visions, and we'll get the call back to the Brienne Jaime Kingslayer convo. So that's interesting, I think. And the Bran knows Jaime's role with the Night King. I do kind of wonder what this means. I wonder if what this person is suggesting is that Jaime is going to be the one to kill the Night King, which is definitely, a possibility. But I actually really agree with this whole thing about the misdirect, about Bran being one of the ones to stand up for Jaime. I think that that's absolutely possible. In fact, I think that would be a really good way of doing it, because yeah, everyone's expecting, I'm sure that Sansa is probably expecting, she probably wants Jaime's head for what he did to Bran, and Bran himself to stand up and be like, you know what, it's fine. I actually, I'm kind of standing up for him. I think that would be fantastic if they did it that way. Ladies, what do you think?
I will say Isaac Hempstead Wright has mentioned, I think in at least more than one interview, that we're going to see a more human Bran than we've seen for a bit. And I've been wondering how that's going to happen. I really like your idea that's how Bran's more numb state will sort of pay off. But I'm also wondering where this more human aspect of Bran that Isaac has referenced will come into play. And if it's not in confronting Jaime, I don't really know when it could be.
Interesting. Yeah. Lady G, what do you think?
I feel like Bran has almost become this kind of like totally neutral kind of standpoint, because he's sort of mentally kind of evolved above everyone else. And I wonder if that's going to be really kind of necessary, like going into the end of the season, to have this kind of somebody who is who's kind of seeing it dispassionately and logically and going, well, like, because I can see all these different threads, and yeah, so I do feel like there may be an element to him kind of defending Jaime, or not even defending Jaime, but being kind of like, what he did was wrong, on a moral level, but also bigger picture, But then actually, so what Petra said actually intrigued me, because I hadn't heard that Isaac saying about the more human element. But then I wonder if that's going to be a familial thing, if there's going to be, so I don't know, something to do with Jon or Sansa or something, because that's going to trigger at the end of the day. Although he has become something other, he still has those family ties, and they're the Starks at the end of the day. So I wonder if there's going to be an aspect, there's something that that pulls him out of that's kind of too strong, and pulls him back into kind of being Bran again. I don't know.
Yeah, I've kind of wondered about that too, about is there something that could kind of knock Bran out of his, emotionless state, and at least sort of, like, to a small extent, or, for a short period of time, kind of, yeah, like, knock him back into being Bran. If that's the case, I mean, yeah, you would think that seeing the man who did this to him could possibly do that. However, the fact, I feel like if that were to happen, because Bran obviously knew that Jaime was coming, right? We saw him sitting out in the courtyard, it seems like all night long. Because he said, I'm waiting for an old friend. So he knew Jaime was coming. So it wouldn't necessarily be a surprise to see him. And it seems to me like anything that would be so impactful on Bran as to kind of, again, knock him back into being a little bit more human would be something that would come as more of a surprise. Technically, yes, nothing surprises Bran anymore because he knows everything. But on the other hand, we've seen Bran, he knows everything, but kind of only when he knows, or he's been asked to look for it. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. So it still could have been a surprise to him that Jaime was coming, and that it would have surprised him to see him there. And then it kind of would have, knocked him for a loop. But yeah, as to Isaac saying in an interview that, Bran is going to be a little bit more human. Yeah, I don't know what that could mean. I think somebody in the chat, Jamie One Hand, said he almost smiled again when he saw Jon. So maybe that was it. Maybe we already saw it. Like, maybe that's the extent of Bran's humanity. So I don't know. And the other part of what this person said is interesting to me is Bran knows Jaime's role with the Night King. So like I said, do we think that means that Jaime is the one who is going to kill the Night King? I wonder what you guys think about that.
I hope that's not how things pan out. I understand the symmetry of having him kill the Mad King and then the Night King, but thematically, I feel like his story's been going in a different direction than that. There are other characters who it would be fit better to be the the guy who actually kills the Night King and Jaime is just not it. I don't think.
Yeah, I have to agree. I can't really see the clear path toward that, unless it's just kind of, like you were saying, like, oh, he killed the Mad King, maybe he's going to kill the Night King. I mean, are they just playing on the fact that he's a Kingslayer? I don't know that that makes sense. Lady G, what do you think?
I think it would be kind of kind of cheap, to be honest, if they were just like, oh, Jaime, always a Kingslayer. I mean, he's killed a king we all wanted dead, but hey ho. No, I agree with Petra. I think his story arc has gone in a very different direction and has hinted at very different things. I don't feel like that's what he's destined to do. And I think it would be, for viewers, I think that would be a kind of a what the hell kind of moment. I don't know. Obviously, what's going to happen is he's just going to settle down with Brienne, and they're going to be very happy.
I mean, I kind of hope so, but yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me, I think. Unless there's something that they just haven't revealed to us yet, and I don't think that that's the case this late in the game. So, but speaking of Jaime, let's talk about Cersei real quick, because we have another submitted question. This is from Ingeborg VH. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, at IngeBVH. Any thoughts on Qyburn's line to Bronn? She has other plans for the Targaryen girl. What use does Cersei have for Daenerys? Is she planning on sending someone else to kill her with a different poetic weapon? And I have to admit that when I saw the submitted question, I had kind of forgotten about that line, and I was kind of stumped on this. I can't really imagine what other use Cersei would have for Dany, unless she's still kind of thinking about the prophecy thing about the other queen who, the younger, more beautiful queen who's going to come cast her down. But I mean, I don't really know how that would fit into other plans for Dany. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm kind of stumped on this one.
Sorry, Lady G, I think you were going to start talking before me.
I was just going to say, like, I feel because of the way that they've shown Cersei's character in the show towards other women, whether that's because of the prophecy or just because it's kind of in her nature. When I saw that, I just instantly thought of her with Ilaria, and I feel like, because it does say plans and not use, and so to me plans suggests that she's just got some kind of horrible torture. I feel like in kind of Cersei's ideal world, that she would be the one to dispatch Daenerys and have something kind of nasty. I don't know. That was my kind of thinking, that not that she has something she wants her to do, but just that she wants her to have, a kind of long, slow, drawn out death. I don't know, reanimated by Qyburn and then killed again. Yet who knows? Or actually, no, I've said that, and I'm thinking maybe her plan is to kill Daenerys, get Qyburn to reanimate her, and then have her as a kind of puppet to Daenerys on the Iron Throne, secretly controlled by Cersei behind the scenes. I know that's not going to happen, but now I've thought it. That's kind of
well. I mean, if anyone could do it, it would be Qyburn. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing though about wanting Dany there for so she can do this long drawn out torture thing. I mean, aside from the fact that Cersei knows that Dany wants her crown, I mean, she doesn't have I think a fraction of the animosity toward Dany that she has toward Ilaria, a woman who murdered her daughter. What she did to Ilaria and Tien was brutal, because they hurt. Cersei and Ilaria ended up having a long intertwined kind of history that the way that Cersei chose to deal with Ilaria was spectacularly cruel, because of something that Ilaria had done that was also spectacularly cruel. I think that Cersei feels threatened by Dany, and she certainly doesn't want her taking her kingdom. But I don't know. That's why the whole thing about having plans for her is kind of throwing me off a little bit, because I just don't understand. They have not set up that really kind of deep-seated hatred that Cersei has of Dany that would lead Cersei to do anything similar to what she did to Ilaria. So yeah, I don't know. This is kind of throwing me off a tad. Petra, yeah, go ahead.
It may not be as nefarious as we're interpreting it to be. That could be another hint that Tyrion brokered some sort of deal with Cersei. That maybe, maybe Cersei's child will be on the throne. I don't know, but in return, Jon and Daenerys can't be harmed. Something roughly to that effect. Again, the word choice of plans specifically is a little misleading, but I'm just saying because some sort of elaborate Daenerys torture would feel very out of place in the storyline as it is. I'm thinking, what else could it be? Could be that that's part of her deal that she has to uphold with Tyrion, and that line is intended as yet another hint that Tyrion is holding his cards back.
Which could definitely be possible because we still don't really know what is going on in Tyrion's head and what um he there's something that is going on there, and I don't feel very confident in Tyrion anymore, and I think that they've they've set that up very well, but yeah, that's, and maybe the Petra, like you said, the word choice of other plans is maybe not, maybe that's not actually what they mean. Maybe all they mean is Cersei wants to kill Dany herself. Maybe not in this kind of really gruesome fashion like she did with Ilaria, but yeah, maybe she just wants to be the one to do it. I don't know. Yeah, that whole thing did kind of throw me off a little bit. I hope that it doesn't end up being a line that was said and then kind of like not followed up on in any kind of way, but wouldn't be the first time that's happened in the show. So yeah. All right. So I think that's all the submitted questions that we have. Let's go through the live chat and see if there's anything that we missed. I don't really think so. Oh, so Barbie Lopez in the live chat says, when do you think the Golden Company will attack? So that's an interesting question. Do you think it could be as soon as tonight's episode? What do you guys think? Petra, I'm calling on you.
I truly have no idea. I thought in my head I had a vague sense of how the Golden Company was going to be treated in relation to the Greyjoy storyline, and then that got wrapped up very quickly last episode, so I can't even speculate. I've got nothing. Lady
G?
Yeah, I honestly have no clue with that one. I'm basing this purely off what I saw in the trailer, and I'm gonna say not this episode. Because I feel like they're just gearing it. I feel like this episode is going to be more of a kind of almost like a direct follow-on to the stuff that we saw in the premiere in terms of the Dany, Jon, the Jaime, Bran stuff. I don't know. I can't see it, but honestly, yeah, I have no clue. Unless, and where are the elephants? So I'm not even excited. There's no elephants.
Yeah. I do love the fact that they snuck in a joke about how apparently they couldn't afford them. It wasn't in the budget, and when Harry Strickland is talking to Cersei and she goes, "Oh, and the elephants?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, no, you know what? They wouldn't survive the journey or something." And then even later after her roll in the sheets with Euron and she's like, "Oh, one of those elephants." I kind of love how they did like a very meta commentary on the fact that like, sorry, it wasn't in the budget.
It reminded me of Cersei's comment after Tyrion is injured at the Battle of Blackwater, and she says, "Oh, I'd heard you lost your nose, but it's not as bad as all that." And I was like, yeah. I see you writers.
Yep. Yeah, I wanted elephants too, but as long as we get a little bit more ghost, I guess I'll be happy, but I'm also not upset with more dragons. So, all right, let's see if there's any well, speaking of Ghost, Jamie One Hand just said, "I'll throw another question at you. Where is Ghost?" That's a good question. No idea. You would think he'd be hanging around in Winterfell somewhere. I feel like we've already had a couple of reunions and there's a couple more still to come. So hopefully hopefully we're going to see Ghost in this episode. You know what? I'm going to call it. I'm going to say we're going to see Ghost in tonight's episode. We're going to see him at least once before the battle. So that's my thought, and I'm sticking to it. So
I'm gunning for we don't see Ghost the entire series until right at the end when everyone else is kind of dead, and winter has come and there's an empty Iron Throne, and then there's just like a little pitter patter of doggy feet, and then Ghost is just there like, I'm in charge now, bitches.
yeah, I'd be fine with it. I mean, Ghost on the Iron Throne, sure. I dig it. So all right, let's see. Anything else that we've got from the live chat? So Gian Grimaldi says, I see the flight of Jon and Dany and the dragons were more than just a flight. It was a bonding of Jon and his dragon, and a bond between the two between the two dragons, which I think they mean between Jon and Dany, the two dragons, after watching the two hug and kiss. So yeah, let's real quick. So what I want to know what your guys' thoughts are about the whole Jon riding Rhaegal. I have to say, I'm surprised that they did that pretty much right off the bat. It was in the first episode, and it was pretty soon into the first episode. I thought that they would maybe make it after the reveal. I think it would have maybe been a little bit more meaningful. But on the other hand, it was also kind of nice that it was so funny. I kept finding myself laughing, because they had Jon kind of like, it was comedic almost, the way that he was so like uncomfortable and scared and thought he was going to fall off and everything. And it was just, I don't know, it was funny. And I'm okay with that, but there's that's another kind of divisive thing that I've been seeing around. So what are your guys' thoughts on how they did the Jon riding a dragon so soon?
I liked that it gave us a moment of levity. The fact that Jon says, you ruined horses for me, that's a joke. Jon made a joke, guys. That's great. A little bit of wish fulfillment. We wanted to watch him ride a dragon. And it helps kind of build up this happiness between him and Daenerys that will, of course, now fall apart. I'll be honest, the dragon riding... The physics of dragon riding on this show bothers me a bit, and in another kind of show, I wouldn't think about it so closely, but the fact that they are riding dragons without saddles, that they're not falling off, that inertia is not, that they're just holding on and just happen to stay on the whole time, that really does bother me. And I suspect that's like a CinemaSins level nitpick, but it is a valid critique that I have of that scene of, you guys they took the time to design the dragons so that their wingspan was sufficient for flight, like anatomically feasible dragons. I love it. I love it so much. And then they didn't bother to think about the physics, how the laws of physics would apply to a human being riding on a dragon. I'm so irked by it, folks.
I mean, yeah, I can't I can't disagree with that in its entirety, because they have gotten much better since season 5, when we saw Dany riding Drogon for the first time out of the fighting pit in Marine, which looked yeah. So they've gotten better at it for sure. But yeah, it's definitely the least believable thing. I mean, it kind of takes you out of it sometimes. And yeah, so not great. But I don't know. Lady G, what were your thoughts on it?
I agree with Petra. It felt a little bit soon. There didn't seem to be much build up. It kind of felt like, I don't remember what the scene before it was, but you were watching something and then all of a sudden it kind of cut to like, let's go for a ride on a dragon. And it was a bit, it was a cute moment. It was a moment of lightness. It was, the callback to the cave with Ygritte and the dragon kind of giving them, kind of boggy looks when they were making out and that. But my partner said that it reminded him of that scene in the Avatar movie where they just jump on the flying things. And once I thought that, I kind of couldn't unthink it. And it did feel a little bit cheesy and just a little bit like, yeah, it was fun to see Jon not kind of knowing what he was doing and being a bit like, oh, all over the place. But it took me out of the episode a little bit. yeah, yeah, it was a nice moment, but I was watching it kind of going like, oh, this is a little bit silly. Neither of them are going to die. I mean, it's fine.
My go-to point of comparison is with the How to Train Your Dragon films, which has spectacular flying scenes. That have either of you guys watched the How to Train Your Dragon films? Okay, so they really like committed to physics. They have a saddle. Like there a point is made about how all of that is committed, and there's this part of me that was watching that going, animated DreamWorks family film had a more plausible usage of that.
Well, with it being animated though, like fully animated, I wonder if that might have been a little easier than trying to put, you know, an actual person on a largely CGI thing.
I mean, in terms of, sorry, what aspect of it would be changed?
Oh, I
Like
don't know.
the
Well,
photorealistic nature of the dragon, or just like the
I guess
um
the putting, you know, a rider on a dragon, you know, animating both aspects of that, I think to me would be, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not an animator, so I just think that might be easier than uh putting an actual person on an animated thing, but I don't know.
No, I'm in favor of them having the way that they did it with John and Daenerys on like the little bull thing and then filming that way. I just mean in terms of the way that they move on the dragon and the way that the dragon flight is animated, to have some sense of like you're not nearly falling off but then miraculously staying on.
Mhm.
I am way more annoyed at this than is possibly reasonable. Like, I get that it was supposed to be a fun thing. You're supposed to think about the magic carpet ride from Aladdin, and I'm here being like, actually, science disagrees with you. But that's what I do now.
I think what's
That's me.
interesting is that in Fire and Blood and in some other, you know, I think in the World of Ice and Fire, but it is mentioned that Targaryen um dragon riders would wear saddles on the dragons. I'm not entirely sure uh why they didn't have that in this, but you know, they also had, you know, they don't have Danny ever wearing armor, and then, you know, again in stuff like Fire and Blood, we know for sure that dragon riders usually would also wear armor if they were riding their dragon into battle, but you know, I guess they're not being too nitpicky about you know, that kind of details. So all right. So I think that's about it as far as submitted questions. I don't think I think we got through everything in the live chat. Um, so let's talk about what we think is going to happen tonight. And of course, people in the live chat, if you have any thoughts, please do continue to drop questions and comments in there. But let's talk about what we think is going to happen tonight. You know, maybe just kind of one or two really big things that we think is going to happen. I think the Jamie trial thing is going to be interesting. I think we can safely say that it's going to be set up that way from the season 2 or the episode 2 tease. We see Jamie standing there in the Great Hall. You know, there's armed guards all around him, and you know, Danny and Sansa and them are sitting at the head table there. So I think they're definitely framing it as a kind of a trial, but I think that, you know, a lot of people are saying that this is going to be another instance of Danny being like kind of unreasonable, saying like, oh, you know, you killed my father when, you know, well, your father was a madman who was going to murder, you know, uh, 500,000 people. But I think that the way that they're setting that up is, you know, in the tease for episode 2, you hear Danny saying, you know, my brother and I used to dream about what we would do to the man who killed our father. But I, for one, think that that is very obviously only half of a sentence. I think the fact that she is definitely going to question him. Absolutely. She's going to want to know why the Queen's brother is there, the general, you know, commanding general of the Lannister forces is there. So there's definitely going to be a lot of questioning going on. But I think that she is going to recognize the importance of the fact that he's there, and how much it means that Jamie of all people has now abandoned Cersei. So I think that after some initial questioning, I think that she's going to be more than happy to take him into her service. But might be wishful thinking on my part. Ladies, what do you think?
I think it can probably go one of two ways. One is Daenerys is, tempted to repeat what she did with the Tarleys. And that would be how it's framed. Except this time Tyrion has an even greater incentive to talk her out of it. Or she's going to kind of do what she did when she first met Jon and say, my father was an evil man. I acknowledge this. I shall proceed accordingly. And if she does I'm going to get revenge for my father, I think that's going to really bring up all of those questions that Sam had about, or that people have been having about her sanity and her ability to lead, because she's such an emotional woman and all of that stuff. And that's going to drive a further wedge that shall presumably continue to snowball. Or she is going to be the one who demonstrates her willingness to put aside differences in the name of the greater good and say, however I feel about you killing my father, there are greater things that we need to be worried about right now. Let's put this aside and move forward. And that would ingratiate her to Sansa. And that would be a major, not first impression, she already made one of those, but the beginning of her winning her subject's heart. And I hope that's how they go about it, because that is a clear opportunity for her to be the Mad Queen. And if she chooses not to, then the people in the North can go, oh, okay, this isn't King Aerys 2.0. This is a better queen. This is the queen we've actually seen for 8 seasons at this point.
Yeah.
I very much hope that's how they do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I would love that. I think that would be fantastic. And the way that you said, Petra, it makes a lot of sense. For sure. Lady G, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we all know that the kind of the voiceovers and things they use in the trailers are going to be edited to be misleading. And, I really dislike this looking at Dany as if she's kind of like a hysterical woman, or, she's too emotional to be queen and things like that. So I really hope that they don't kind of go down this route. Or, I mean, even a bit like you guys were saying earlier about Samwell, of being angry just because he killed her dad. And he was, it's one of those things. And I think you're right, Petra. I think her kind of acceptance of Jaime is going to do a lot more. I mean, it would get Brienne on side, if nothing else, right? It's going to do a lot more in the long run. And I hope that what I can see happening is her not coming to that conclusion, but her advisors coming to that conclusion, and there being this kind of thing. If Tyrion being like, well, maybe, we need Jaime on side. She's like, you're just saying that because he's your brother. I can see that there's where the familial kind of tension is going to go. But yeah, but I hope it's nothing kind of. I don't want Dany to go crazy because he's a Kingslayer. I'm on Team Jaime.
Yeah, I am too. At this point, I've come around. Jaime did not used to be one of my favorite characters, but I've come around. It's interesting that you mentioned, the Sam's reaction and how that happened and everything. And, I worry that because they kind of went that way with Sam having the reaction that he did to his father being killed, even though he knew that his father was an abusive dickhole. Excuse my language, but but yeah, and still kind of having the reaction that he did, which, and we talked about this, it totally understandable reaction, but there was also another way to go with that I think might have been a better way to go, and they didn't. And what worries me is that they're going to do that kind of thing again with Dany, where they are, it's I hope that it's not what they're going to do, but I can see that it would be like, Dany would be still very upset with Jaime and still not want to bring him into her service or whatever, kind of thing, and have to be talked into it by her advisors, who again are largely or basically completely men. Once again, the men having to talk sense into the woman kind of thing. And we know that from the season or the episode 2 photos that were released earlier this week, that there is some kind of like a war council meeting looking thing, because we have Jon and Dany and Jorah and Varys and Tyrion and everybody, basically everyone important. I think Arya is even there, and it looks like they're all kind of gathered in a, you know, around like a fireplace or something. They're all talking. So I wonder if, you know, the Jamie trial thing happens, and then it's like, okay, hey, we need to think about this, and then Jamie or Dany and her advisors go off and talk, and they kind of have to talk her into the right response. And I kind of hope it doesn't go that way. I kind of hope that those photos are, you know, unrelated to the Jamie thing. I hope they're more related to planning. But I don't know, guys. I as excited as I am for the season, I'm really hoping that they don't take the kind of very predictable way with some of these situations. And I don't know. I worry. I do.
One of the things that particularly annoys me about this "you killed my father" thing is I mentioned earlier that Yara basically shrugged off her own father's death, and Theon did not care at all. But there have been a lot of cases of people. The reaction to meeting your loved one's killer has varied wildly. So Tyrion was angry at Ilaria for killing Myrcella, but he let that go pretty quickly. Cersei, not so much. Davos mentioned that Tyrion killed his son and really let that slide very quickly. The Greyjoy siblings did not care about their father's death. So if you are going to have Daenerys very, very, very angry at Jamie for killing a father who she knows was awful, who she never met, on the grounds of, well, that's how people react to their parents, the show has not supported that reaction.
Yeah, agreed. So, it's going to be interesting. I'm really hoping that they kind of handle this whole Jamie trial thing well. I'm not going to say the right way because I don't, you know, I'm not going to say that I know what the right way is, but I hope that they handle it well. So I don't know. So we
Can
know
I
that that's,
say?
oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Just one more quick thing. It would be very odd if, provided that Jamie is going back to Winterfell and is facing the consequences of his crimes and a big deal is being made of it, it's a little weird that Theon's going to show up as well, because people also have a reason to want him dead. And we don't have time for a lot of trials. We don't have time for a whole lot of these issues. But if we're going to have to give equal weight to our war criminals, if we're going to make a big deal about what Jamie's done, you're going to have to spend screen time on that other character. And I'm curious to see how they balance that. Like, oh, you've done bad things, you need to face up. Oh God, we got to wrap things up. Theon, I don't care. Just get in line. It's fine. Season 2, who cares?
Well, I wonder if, you know, and whenever that might be that Theon makes it back, which we know now that he will be after, you know, what happened in the premiere. I wonder, and that does bring up a good point, because yeah, if they're going to have Jamie there, you know, questioning him for all the things that he's done, then they would have to do the same for Theon. But I wonder if they would kind of not sweep it under the rug, but John would be like, you know, it's fine, everyone. Theon and we talked about it's all good.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I'll bet money that will happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's
not a criticism.
That they would have to.
That they would have to. They either have to. Anyways, I'm going to start repeating myself, but those are my thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, the Jamie trial thing is going to be really interesting. What else do we think? Let's make some predictions. What else do we think is going to happen in tonight's episode? This kind of, I was actually going to bring this up, and then I saw it come up in the live chat from Leo P. Says, do you think we will get a conversation between Jorah and Lyanna Mormont? And I think that would be, I think that, you know, unlike a conversation between Sansa and Varys, which really, I don't know really what it would mean. Something between Lyanna and Jorah, I think it would maybe only slightly more meaningful, but I think that they might have time to slide that in there, which would be really interesting. Maybe at the end of this episode, which if we're to believe that, and this is not a spoiler, this is out there for everyone to know, that the third episode of this season is going to be the big battle at Winterfell. We know that that's happening in episode 3. So we can assume, I think, that at least toward the end of episode 2 is when we're going to see people start preparing for that. They realize that the Night King is in the army, is almost there or something, and it's like, okay, everyone to your battle stations kind of thing. And I wonder if Lyanna and Jorah somehow end up talking to each other, standing on the wall, on the battlements or something. So I think that's a little bit more wishful thinking, but I think if there would be a time for it, it would be in this episode, because I hate to say it, but I think that Jorah is going to die in the Battle of Winterfell. That's just a prediction of mine. But I don't know, guys. Do you have any thoughts on that? Lady G, what do you think?
I would absolutely love a Jorah Lyanna moment, because I love me some moments. And there's I'm sure you guys saw the stills from the episode tonight where she's in her armor, looking totally badass. And I'm so here for what you're saying about, maybe at the end of the episode they're kind of preparing for battle, them crossing paths, and him being like, "You're so small and angry," yeah, I'm so here for it. I'm not here for your prediction of Jorah dying. Excuse me.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Get out.
It's just yeah. So I don't know.
I can see it. I partially wonder if maybe he's got plot armor because he's had grayscale and come through it, and not necessarily, not in Game of Thrones per se, but in a lot of fantasy fiction, if a character can kind of survive that kind of a thing, they kind of get plot armor against something for the future. Game of Thrones doesn't necessarily work like that because it is very kind of kill your darlings, and but that's my fingers crossed. On the other hand, I don't know what would equate to being a good ending for Jorah, because obviously he wants to end up with Daenerys. He's not going to end up with Daenerys. So, I mean, maybe he just goes and runs a ranch with Samwell. I don't know. So maybe, yes, he's probably going to die, but I don't want, it's not going to happen tonight.
I cross my fingers that it will not be tonight, but I don't have high hopes for the Battle of Winterfell for him, but I digress. Petra, do you have any thoughts on a Lyanna Jorah conversation?
I'd like one. I think in terms of, economic screen time, we wouldn't need a conversation so much as a shared glance.
Mm-hmm.
Lady Mormont, Lord Mormont, sir, something, and then they take their positions. We already had the conversation between Jon and Jorah where he kind of said, "I broke my father's heart. I brought shame to my family." He doesn't need to have that conversation again. But if we can have him exchange a look with a family member for the first time in decades, that would be very nice. And it would not take very much time out of the episode at all.
Yeah. I like that. I like that idea a lot. Just the kind of, the shared glance kind of thing, because like Petra, you bring up a good point. There was already that kind of conversation where Jorah, spilled his guts about, I broke my father's heart, brought shame to the family. Blah, blah, blah. We've heard it all before. And Jon really is not the only person that Jorah has suggested that to in the past. So yeah, it's been said. So I don't think that he would. And honestly, I kind of feel like if he would start to say something like that to Lyanna, like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for what I did to our family." She's like, "Well, hey, you're here, right? So fuck it. Yeah, thanks. Cool." It's like, you made the right decision and you're here and you're going to help. So let's not waste any time with, with emotions, because I feel like Lyanna is a little emotion averse, I think, but only because she's such a badass. So, all right. Let's see here if we have anything else from the live chat. Do we think we'll get a Sansa Sandor scene? That's from Jamie One Hand. I think so. And again, I think that this episode, it's like there's a lot of things that if it's not going to happen in this episode, it's going to have to wait until episode 4 or even 5, because 3 is going to be, like we said, we know is going to be that big battle. So if it's not happening in tonight's episode, it's going to have to wait. And the longer that anything waits, kind of the less chance there is of it happening I guess, if that makes sense. So I think it's entirely possible that they'll, have a little reunion kind of conversation of their own. And I think that the odds are good of it happening in tonight's episode. You guys have any thoughts?
I think one of the tricky things about putting off character interactions that we feel have to happen is that we now know that the character has to survive. If Sandor and Sansa, they have to meet. We had Arya meet Sandor. Sansa has to meet him. If they don't meet tonight, then what that says to me is, oh, Sandor definitely survives Winterfell, which I'm at this moment not sure he does. And I want to be unsure so that the tension is high. But if I'm sitting there going, oh, I'm sitting on this conversation, it hasn't happened yet, well, then he has plot armor until they have that conversation.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's why I said, like, if it's not going to happen tonight and then yeah, we kind of know that it's going to happen later. And like you said, that kind of tells us that Sandor is gonna survive the Battle of Winterfell. And I'm with you that I don't necessarily think that he will, but that's, a whole other thing. Lady G, do you have any thoughts on a Sansa Sandor reunion, whether it's going to happen, if it does happen, what it's going to be like?
I mean, I am a self-confessed Sansan shipper, or Sansan fan, if you want to be cool. Again, it's one of those things that I feel isn't as built up in the show as it is in the books, purely because we're not getting Sansa's internal kind of monologuing in the way that we do in the books, and talking, about the unkiss and keeping hold of his cloak and all that kind of stuff. She thinks about him almost as much as he thinks about lemon cakes. Let's not beat around the bush, right? But so again, it's one of those things where I go, I wonder if the show is going to play it in a kind of like a downplayed way. Obviously, she had a different relationship with him to the one that Arya had with him. But I mean, the Arya Sandor meetup was cute. It was just that kind of one liner, you left me to die. No, I robbed you first, and off he goes. But that's kind of all you want all I really wanted from them was that kind of quipping, and then him kind of almost looking proudly after her, like, that's my girl, she did try and rob me. I wonder whether or not the show would actually do justice to the way in which I want Sandor and Sansa to interact, or whether it is just going to be that, like, remember when we hung out that one time? Yeah, that was quite the evening. It had its moments. I don't know, and I completely agree in terms of, because we are so close to the end game. I think with a lot of characters, I think there are certain things, I mean, it does happen every season when you see things in the trailer and then you get halfway through the season, you think, oh, I haven't seen that scene with Grey Worm yet, so he must survive another 3 episodes because I know we're not going to see him this week, and things like that. I think we're at the end game, and there are going to be certain things where we go, well, this, and this hasn't happened. It has to happen. Therefore, this character's going to survive another day. But I mean, I'm tense enough already, so I'm okay. I can live with like a little, like, so and so is coming back next week. I don't need to break out my like Jorah Mormont morning gown just yet.
Yeah. I like what you bring up about the fact that in the books, Sansa and Sandor's relationship is a little bit more, probably a lot more meaningful to Sansa than it is in the show, because I mean, they still do, go to lengths to show us that Sandor is really the only one who's kind of defending her in any sense of the word in while she's in King's Landing. And so it's not that their relationship in the show is totally inconsequential, but yeah, in the books, it's, I think, definitely has more meaning. And like you mentioned, because we have the benefit of POV chapters in the books, we can't see inside Sansa's head in the show, and we're not given that kind of glimpse as to how the extent to which the relationship the Hound and Sansa has, that it affects her. So yeah, I think that I think it's something that they can't really not have, even though their relationship wasn't as important as it was in the books. I think it's something that they can't go without, and I think that yeah, I think tonight is probably the night for it to happen. So I think we're going to start wrapping it up here, ladies. So do you have any kind of final thoughts on what's going to happen tonight? Any predictions? If you want to make any predictions for who's going to die, now might be the time. So Petra, let's start with you.
I think this episode is going to really establish the direction that they're taking with Dany. And I'm going to stay optimistic until the last possible second, but how she reacts to Jaime is probably going to be a crossroads. Sorry, my words are failing me. Anyways, this is my own bias, but the Greyjoy storyline, I really want to see how that goes.
Mhm.
Any and all Greyjoy appearances, I eagerly await. I'm a simple person.
I agree that I'm also very eager to see where it's going to go with not only with Theon but with Yara, because I really hope that Yara was not rescued that early in episode 1 just for us to never really see her again in the season, and
You and me both.
that would make me very sad. So yeah, the Greyjoy storyline itself is one that I'm also very eager to see how it unfolds. And we know that Theon is, at least he wants to, and probably is in the process of making his way back to Winterfell. So we'll see how that goes. But what you said about how this episode is likely going to establish the way that they're going to end up taking Dany's character for the rest of the season, and how her story is going to end in the show. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. Literally, that's literally what I was going to say. So 100% agree. Lady G, what are your thoughts about tonight's episode?
I mean, I'm also a Greyjoy girl. I really want to see more of Yara. I think she's kind of underutilized in the show. I mean, I think Gemma Whelan does an amazing job every time we see her, but I would love to see more of Yara. I can't wait for Theon to get back and start interacting with everyone again. I do feel like this is going to be quite a obviously it's going to be a Jaime's trial focused episode. I'm kind of worried. I'm kind of apprehensive about where they're going to take Dany, because I think this will be, like, as you guys said, a very much kind of establishing moment. I'm hoping, I mean, again, looking at kind of like the stills, we know that we're going to get some time with like Sam and Gilly and baby Sam, which is always nice. I think is what I really liked about the premiere. I felt like it did do the balance quite well. I think last season there were a lot of episodes that felt very rushed. I know you said that, Sam, that the last episode did feel quite rushed to you, but I felt like it was better balanced than some of the season 7 stuff. And I hope that again that this one they kind of find a nice balance between what could be quite a kind of dry, talky episode in terms of like, what has Jaime done wrong and how are we going to deal with it, and kind of the other stuff. And in terms of who's going to die, it's not going to be Euron, but I would be fine if it was Euron, because I hate that guy so much. If he never appeared, even if he just, like, I think I tweeted this last week, I was like, I care so little for Euron's character that if the Franken Gregor turned around and accidentally battered him against the wall and just killed him, and everyone else was just like, oh, there goes Euron, I'd be like, yes, that's fine. That is absolutely fine. No more fingers at the bum, nothing. Just get rid of him.
I kind of agree with you on that. At this point, Euron is almost like more comic relief than anything. And the thing is, I don't know that they're intending that to be the case, but yeah, Euron, yeah, I won't get into that. But yeah, yeah, tonight's going to be interesting. It is, I think I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of action-y type things happening. I think that the focus is largely going to be on, Jaime arriving in his trial. And there is, Lady G, I love how you mentioned the fact that one of those stills that we got for tonight that we know is going to happen is a scene between Gilly and Sam. And I do love those conversations between them, because I really feel like truly no one understands Sam the way that Gilly does. I know John's his best friend and everything, but but one of the things that if we are going to be shown a nice conversation between them, one of the things that I really hope that it will be is I hope that it is Sam telling Gilly how conflicted he felt when Dany told him what happened to his father and his brother. I really hope that he kind of explains the anguish that he felt about, or, and even if he was feeling any guilt, which would be totally understandable, like maybe initially he felt really relieved that his father was gone. And then he felt so he felt so guilty about feeling relieved that that's what made him angry. Or if it really was, mostly just the fact that now he never has a chance to reconcile with his dad in any way, shape, or form. So, but I'm hoping that I feel like all of that conversation didn't happen before Sam decided to use the reveal kind of almost against John, or against Danny in support of John, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. So I'm hoping that that is a conversation that we get tonight between Sam and Gilly, and I'm hopeful, based on this, the stills that is going to happen. That would make me very happy. So. All right. Well, if we have no more final thoughts, ladies, we're going to call it an episode. I want to thank everybody who tuned in, everybody who submitted questions. Thank you so much for supporting us and for joining us tonight. Once again, I'm Samantha, contributing writer for WatchersOnTheWall.com. You can find me on Twitter at the Sansa Snark. I also co-host the Night's Cast, in addition to the Sunday live streams every Sunday starting at 5 p.m. Eastern here on the Watchers on the Wall channel. In addition to this, we still will be recording quick recap episodes of the podcast every Monday night. Those will be ready for release every Tuesday morning, so do keep an eye out for those as well. Ladies, thank you again for joining me. Lady G, one more time, do you want to tell people where they can find you?
So I am on Twitter. I am at lady_Jeffrey. That is Jeffrey with an ERY because I'm weird. I'm also on Instagram as the same. And occasionally I will pop up on the Night's Cast regular podcast as well, if you wish to hear more of my dulcet British tones.
And we always do. So, all right. And Petra, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at PL Halber.
All right. Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, and you can find the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. And you can also find us on Twitter at Night's Cast. Please do give us a follow and stay tuned for tonight's episode because it's going to be a doozy. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.